Howdy everybody, it's Amy here from Amy Sparkly Diamond Painting, and I have an order here from 121 Stitch. This is the partner company closely associated with Painting Fairy. They use Painting Fairy for the printing and the floss on their kits, but they offer counted cross stitch as well as stamped, a lot more counted cross stitch than you find at a lot of other stores from China. And they also have licensed artwork, so they work with a lot of artists out there and give them commissions for the art, so they do support artists. And because they are associated with Painting Fairy, they offer a lot of the same tools and supplies that Painting Fairy does, and they sent me an offer for a half price on another frame. So I do have my frame stand, my yellow one. It's the bed stand, but it's I'm small enough that I can sit on my couch and use it comfortably as a regular frame, so I don't have the full large stand. I have the bed stand that I'm using, and I have the really large Pokemon size frame that I bought from Painting Fairy, but I wanted a second frame that was a little bit smaller, so when they gave me the offer to get another one at half price, I did. So this one isn't the stand, it is just a frame in here, but it will allow me to put smaller canvases on and switch back and forth, so I don't have to take off my large cross stitch every time I want to work on something else. So I'm gonna have a couple going now on a couple of frames. I've talked about wanting to do that before. I'm trying to find the best way to open this, but as you can see here, this is how it came. It arrived today. They're pretty quick actually on getting the frames, a little bit faster than the cross stitch because they don't have to do any printing or anything of the frames obviously, but it does have the branding on there. But it's a pretty heavy box, but they put tape all the way around it, which makes it a little tougher to open, but because it is heavy, it keeps it safe during shipping, and so that way you know you got all of your parts in here. So we will open this. This looked like the easiest side to open. I was trying to cut through a couple other spots. My thumb is still sore. This is pre-surgery time here, and so cutting with scissors can be a little bit tricky, but I may have to. It looks like there's a cross stitch in here maybe. We'll have to see. But I'm gonna go ahead and pause the camera to cut this because I don't want you to have to see my struggles, so I'll be right back. Okay, I am back, and I went ahead and cut it the rest of the way open. I wanted you to see everything that's inside, and this is probably one of the most important pieces here. So they do have demo videos on how to build these because it can be a little bit tricky, and there is a way to mess up on filling or putting your fabric in there. I've done it a couple times myself, so they do have information to help you put this together as well as fix any potential problems. The biggest problem I had was that I was putting the clear plastic holders in backwards and then they just come out. It took me a little while to figure out what the correct orientation was, so I got kind of frustrated with it one day, and my hubby came to the rescue. He also built my stand for me. He's very mechanically inclined and loves working with tools, so he got my frame together pretty easily. But we talked about we probably should have taken it apart after we did it and made a video showing you all how to do it, but Painting Fairy and 121 Stitch have videos here, and these are the links to those videos. So this is what I got. I got the scroll frame, but I did get enough bars that I could mount a bigger one, not quite as big as a Pokemon, but you choose the number of bars that you need and attach them here with a metal piece that screws in if you want longer ones, or if you want just one, you can do that without attaching further bars to it. So that's why it is adjustable. So it's probably best if you can afford it to get the bigger one, and then you can have all different sizes and ranges that you can work with. but the price can be kind of high, so you can go smaller if you want to, because they are a little bit pricey. But we do have discount codes and all that, and they do put them on sale, so check my links below. I am a 121 Stitch affiliate, so I do have links for that. We do have the information here on how Painting Fairy makes their floss. We've talked about that many times, so I will not dwell too long on that. Oh, this is new and different as well. When I got the first one, it did not have these. This looks really handy. So this shows you photos of how to put it together, so you may not even need the video. So it shows what comes with the kit. You've got the metal bars, the adjusters here, and the plastic pieces here that push in to hold your fabric. And these are the metal pieces that hold the different bars together. And you have a hook to help push the fabric down in there. So they show exactly how to mount them to put multiple bars together. And you do this on 3 sides and leave one side open, one side set of the grooves, because that's where your fabric goes in here. So very good photos here. You can kind of see the one groove here that's left open. If I can get the glare away, that's the one groove that your fabric goes in, and the screws are on 3 sides to hold your different pieces together. So very, very sturdy. And then you slide these onto both and twist it to tighten the fabric. So very nice. They show all the details here. For this is where I was messing up, and that's where I had my acrylic bar going in backwards. So it's incorrect to put the flat side at the top. That's what I was thinking, is that the flat side needed to go on the top. I must not have been the only one, because they put this together. The flat side goes at the bottom. So it's a little triangular prism that's very long. So you make sure that the longest side is pointing downward into the frame rather than upward. So I made that mistake a few times early on, but it's nice to see that they have all the instructions here, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. So let's see what we got here. We got a little cross stitch, as well as a sample of the Painting Fairy floss. We have an off-white color this time. So I'm getting a nice collection here growing of the Painting Fairy floss here. It looks just like DMC. It is DMC equivalent in my opinion, and it's nice and strong, very soft, and 100% cotton. So color matching is done, so you can compare this to your DMC colors and they should match exactly. And it's about half the price, even a little bit less, 30 cents a skein before discounts. Whereas you can find DMC for usually 60 cents when it's on sale, but normally it goes over $1 in a lot of places that I've seen it around here. So really good deal on the floss. And they do talk about the different types of cross stitch here on this as well, and a lot more information about the company. So got a cross stitch to look at, since this was again a deal that I got as a content creator. I got this one at a discount, so that's why they gave me a little extra goodie. I'm not sure you would get this in your kit, but here is our frame all packaged together in nice bubble wrap. And I wasn't sure what color it looks like. I picked, is that light blue maybe? The color didn't really matter to me, but we got all the parts in there. But let's look at our cross stitch while we're here. This is a cute little one here. We've got a little farm scene with a rooster and chicken. And it's actually a little bit bigger than I thought here. This is, says 14 count. So let's see what we got. This is a nice round design, which those are good for framing in a hoop if you're never sure what to do with your cross stitch when it's done. So 14 count there. It's my ruler's hiding from me. There we go. about 7 inches across that way, a little bit bigger because of the chicken down here, about 8 inches that way, which in centimeters, that's 20 centimeters that way, and about 18 that way. So decent size here, and you can see the printing here. I'm kind of doing this backwards because I started with the canvas here, but it looks like pretty easy printing and not a very difficult stitch. I'm not seeing any confetti, so there's large areas here of each color. So you can put a thread in your needle and just keep going and fill in all those areas. So here's our floss. Not a ton of floss because it is a smaller design, but there are still plenty of colors here. So this is our color key here. Lots of different half stitches on this one. Lots and lots of half stitches. And it looks like about 4 colors of back stitch. Some of them single or 2 strands of the same color there. 1 or 2 strands there, and they are both white, and these are both 938, so only really 2 colors of back stitch. It's just whether you use 1 or 2 strands, but lots and lots of half stitches here, and a few blends here at the bottom. Looks like only 4 blends. Here's a little peek at the chart, and you can see some of the back stitch there. Not a ton, but it does give some more detail here to the flowers and the chicken. You can kind of see where some of that back stitch is going to end up, and I see some half stitches down here. That's a typical place form, as well as usually sky and background. It gives just a little bit more texture to a design. So yes, indeed, up through there. So number of colors here, it looks like 28 different colors. This is a paper card because it is a smaller design, but we have 2 empty spots here, making 28 colors. Lots and lots of greens on this one for all the plants and trees in the background. Little bits of reds and pinks and golds. A lot of these only have a single strand. So this one might be fun to do as a color by color, where you can pick a random number generator and put 1 through 28, and then let that random generator tell you what color to do next, because most of these colors wouldn't take too long because they're usually only, looks like 1 or 2 strands of most of them. Now once you draw these other bigger colors, though, it might take a little bit longer, but this might be a good one to play around with the idea of color by color stitching. So that's cute. Nice little extra goodie in there. But I do love that they now show you instructions on how to put this frame together, and I'm gonna make a little room here because I think I can do this pretty quick. I think this might be pretty easy once I get into it, so I'll probably edit some of this out where I'm unpackaging everything, so I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I'm zoomed out here. I have unpackaged everything, unboxed it, and this is what we have. We have our 2 adjustable sidebars. These are very heavy. If you're thinking about buying a frame but not getting a stand for it, you might reconsider, unless you have a good place where maybe you can stretch it across a recliner across the arms of your chair, because these frames are heavy and so they do need some sort of support to hold them. So these are really thick, really strong aluminum here. These are a couple pounds each, and so you can imagine trying to hold a frame and stitch on it is going to be pretty hard to do. So you do need some sort of stand to go with these. They do make small table stands that are probably the most affordable option, where it just clips on 2 sides of your table, and that will hold the frame, and you can adjust the angle. You can get the bed stand, which is what I went for, which is a little bit taller, and you can sit on it in your bed, and you can reach everything. So it's not real tall, but at the tallest setting I can kind of lean over and stitch from my couch with that, or you can get the full-size piece of furniture type stands where you put a chair under it and stitch. But you definitely want some sort of stand to hold this, because these are really heavy. So this one I only went for I think this is the 100 centimeter size. So each one of these bars here is 50 centimeters. So 50, 100 on one side and 50, 100 on the other side. But what I wanted to do was show you, I'm trying to look at, okay, that is there. I wanted to show you just using one bar how this will work. I figured that would be a little bit faster. But these right here are what you use to attach the two bars together, and the photos show you how to do that. So I won't go through a whole demonstration of that, but you line two of them up. You put this in half and the other half there, and then you screw them down with these screws that do not have a head on them, and that's because you want this to lay flat or flush. You don't want bumps that you roll your fabric on to cause trouble there with your fabric. So you do have a bunch of these screws that don't have a head on them. They do have a little indentation there for a hex tool, which comes with the kit. So you put that in there and screw these in to strongly hold these together, and you do that on 3 of the sides and leave one of them open. So that's how those work. We're not going to do that today though, but I have 6 of those, which 3 for each bar there. So that's why there's so many of those. And then a ton of the little screws here, as well as the tool to attach it. So you don't want to lose the tool and the screws in order to keep this adjustable for the future if you decide to use a larger project or whatever. So have a nice bag to put these in and know where you left them, because those will be important. We also got some tape. I don't remember getting tape with the last one. This is white masking tape. If you're having trouble getting your fabric started in the frame, you can use this masking tape to hold it while you attach it. And then these are little ends that can go in here to make them just a little less sharp, because they are pretty sharp ends. I'm not going to try to put it on there right now, but you do have a hole that's for the one side that's open that you slide your plastic into hold, which, by the way, you get 4 of these, 1 for each bar. This is what holds your fabric in. And as you can see, it is a pyramid shape at the end, so the long side, you would think it goes up, but it doesn't. It goes down, and that'll hold it secure. And the other side is a point, which makes it a little bit easier to slide in. So that's how it goes in, and if you put it with that flat side down, it will not come out. So that is those, and they are wrapped in cellophane here. You can unwrap them. It took me a little bit of time, so I may just leave this set wrapped for the moment, but should have one of those for each bar. And watch out as you're unboxing, because it is kind of easy to lose some of these screws, and the way they package these, they will slide one in one of each of these, but they do fall out sometimes in shipping, and mine, I had 1 in the packaging, so it looked like I only had 3, but one of them was lost in the packaging, and they are pretty light, so you may not know that they're in the packaging and accidentally throw them away. So I wish, if 121 Stitch or Painting Fairy is listening, I wish you could sell these in case things happen to these, because they are clear. I could see they're pretty strong, but I could see potentially them breaking over time. But I would love to buy extras of just these, and that would be really cool if you offer them on your site, because it is easy to lose them or have something happen to them. So it would be cool if you could buy those. They do offer frame extensions right now, so you can buy a set. I think it comes with 2, 1 for top and 1 for bottom, but if you only bought the smallest one and you wanted to expand later on, you could buy the extension kit, which would come with a couple bars, a couple of these, and the attaching parts. So you could start small and expand as your cross stitching grows. But it would be really cool if you could buy these, because that is probably the spot where you might run into trouble, and also maybe some of these extra screws, although the kit does come with extras. So I'm going to put some of this away, and we're going to get a smaller cross stitch and mount on just one of these. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. I picked a cross stitch to mount on the frame. I picked a little one that would fit across just one bar to show you as an example of how this works. This is of course a 1-2-1 stitch pattern. You've seen it a couple times before. It is our cute little bird that I've been stitching. So this will be a good one to show for demonstration purposes how this would work. So if we take this bar and measure it, you can see this one is indeed, oh, there we go. Okay, it is exactly 50 centimeters across. So that is the maximum that you can put for a piece of fabric across one bar. But you probably want it even shorter because this is going to take up space on each side. So your actual space is between these two, which is closer to something like 43 centimeters, give or take. So there are some limits to just one bar, and that's why I recommend, if you can afford it, go for at least two, but you can always add to it in the future, especially if you start small. So this one is going to be just a little bit too big here, as you can see, but it would be easy to cut this one down because there's so much excess fabric. So I only have about 1.5 centimeters edge on each side here. So it's going to be tough to get these, which do have, I guess I could measure the width there if I already lost my, there it is, it's white. So it's hard to see, but the width of each of these is just over 1 inch, which makes it about 3 centimeters. So you have to keep that in mind. So I need about 3 centimeters clearance on either side of the bar, and I have about 1, so I'm going to have to cut a couple of centimeters off of each side of this fabric to make it fit. But since this is a small one and I have a ton of border on this one, I don't mind cutting it down. I did cut down my Pokemon one to make that one fit, but as you can see, even though the grid starts here, we've got another inch or so here inward before we hit the edge of the design. So I don't mind losing a couple centimeters on each side of this. So I'm going to do that right now. But now, oh yeah, definitely got enough room here. Let me put that in frame. So I probably cut a little bit too much there, but you can measure and get more exact if you want to. But I should have enough room there on each side to hold the bars. And I don't need to attach a second bar, so all 4 sides are open here. And I didn't notice this before, but they do all have a hole in here. I've never needed to use that part, so I'm not completely sure what that would be used for. But 2 of the spots have that hole and the other 2 don't. So the next step is to put a fold here for the top and the bottom to just make it easier to slide in your fabric. So I fold down a little over 1/2 inch, maybe about 3/4 inch. You don't have to measure, but I'm folding and creasing my fabric here because that's what I'm going to stick in. And we can do that real quick, just like that. You do have this hook here that comes with it that you can use to push it down in there, but since this is a small one, that's really not necessary with this particular kit. So you just make sure your crease is in there. You take your plastic, and again, make sure that the long end is pointed down, and look for the end that has the point here. And let's see if I can multitask and get this done on camera. I know the Painting Fairy people are so much better at their videos. They are well produced, and for this it's just me. So what you do is you start at this end and you push that through, it's actually pretty easy. And as long as you have the long end pointed down, it'll just slide in there without popping out. And you just keep pushing it along your fold there, and it might take 2.5 hands. But you see, I just did that myself, all by myself. So I have a little bit sticking out. I'm a little bit uneven with that, but that's okay. And now we're going to do the same exact thing at the bottom. There, I'm pushing it down as I go. Definitely much easier. I started my very first time putting my giant ultimate Pokemon in the largest frame they make, and it was a little bit trickier for one of those. But there we go. And now you can roll it, and some people like it in the ditch or whatever you call it, where it's down, your stitching is below the bar. I usually do it like this, where the stitching is above the bar. Personal preference. It doesn't matter, just so both sides are the same. So I'm kind of rolling it here, getting it somewhat centered here and even. It's a little bit crooked on this side, but that's okay. So I'm rolling it. Okay, so we've got this ready to put the sides on. Now there are a couple things you need to keep in mind when you put the sides on. The first is that you get them close enough together that they're already going to be somewhat tight, because there's only so far that you can twist this to tighten it. So you don't want too much loose fabric between the two when you go to put your sidebars on. The other thing you need to keep in mind, you have to have a clear slot here pointed upward for both of these, because this pin is going to drop down into that groove. And if you try to put it in the groove that's holding the little plastic piece that's holding your fabric, it's not going to go down. So make sure that you have 2 grooves pointed up and that your fabric is not too loose already. So if I tried to tighten this just a little bit more, see, I've got the plastic bar here, and that's not going to work. So I have to choose this empty groove. So, and that's about the right distance. It's a little bit tight, but as I pull it out here, it'll fit. So I'm going to take this side, lift that pin, slide it on, and drop the pin into the groove. And we do need to loosen this one more turn there, and then do the same on this side. Now it's going to try to come out right now, because what's going to hold it on there is going to be the tension as we tighten it. So it's still a little loose, and that's okay. So we've got it just about even there. I've got enough showing there on both sides that it's about even. So now I'm going to very carefully move it across here and attach the other one. So same thing, I've got the 2 grooves that are empty here. I'm going to lift the pins, push it on, and it's easier if you have an extra set of hands. See, the pin can pull out, but you just push it back and it'll go back in. No big deal there. Okay, so now these ends can still come off because we haven't tightened the tension. So what you do is you start turning, and as you turn, these screws are going to widen and it's going to tighten your fabric. So you want to turn both sides in the direction that makes, it's kind of opposite here, that makes this part get wider this way. And that's where we're going to get the tighter fabric. So turning it too tight the other way. So you want it to grow longer. So that's the goal here, is to keep turning this until your fabric gets tight. So we're starting to get there. Let me turn this one a little bit more. It's so much easier with just one bar and a smaller project. like that. So we have a pretty good distance that we can twist. But if you start out with the fabric too loose, you're going to get to the point where the screws actually on each end might pop out. So you want to make sure that you're at least starting somewhat tight on your fabric. And you just keep turning the correct direction. That's probably the trickiest part of this step, is figuring out which way makes those screws come out and grow more. So I'm turning actually inward on both of them, and that's working. So I'm turning it in toward the fabric. And there we go. This one's as far as it will go. I can't twist it anymore. My hubby might be able to twist it a little bit more for me, but this one as well. It's so tight it won't turn anymore. So now, just like the videos they show, that is very, very tight. So even though I didn't worry about being absolutely perfect, it's slightly crooked at the top, it still works great. And I've got my entire cross stitch fitting right there in the middle, able to stitch, and I can lift this. I would guess maybe about 15-20 pounds. I should probably measure that. It could potentially sit in my lap as I work on it. I could hold it with my hand up here and stitch, but then I'd have to be reaching behind it. So typically what you do with these frames is you put them on a stand and you stitch with one hand above and the other hand below. And then you can actually stitch pretty fast because you're not moving back and forth from the front to the back of the fabric. But there we go. So it's really easy to do this, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. But it's really easy for one set, and then as you add more, of course, you got a lot more fabric to slide in, and a little bit trickier with trying to reach. I actually stand up with my Pokemon frame and hold it vertically so that these ends are touching the ground like this, and I'll twist one end and flip it and twist the other till I get it tight enough if it's just me. Otherwise I can ask for help from my hubby. But we've got plenty of room here on the sides, and you see the bars are not falling off. It's the tension there that holds them on. And if you were worried about the sharp edges, of course you could stick your little plastic ends. I don't use the plastic ends, but you certainly could if you wanted to there. So put a couple of them on, and that way if you do decide to like set it on your leg or something to try to hold it, you won't get poked with the metal directly. So these aren't padded at all, but they do at least keep the sharp ends covered up. And I didn't even use this. I don't think I got any with the first one I got. So there may be a purpose to that. It may help hold the fabric during the early stages, especially if you have a large one. I might try it with my larger frame to see if it's helpful there. But there we go. I am all set to work on this one, and this is probably a bit small to fit across the arms of a chair, so you probably would need the second set to make it big enough that you could stitch it with each side being supported by the ends of a recliner. So I'm going to use my little frame stand to hold it. So that's how the frames work, and I'll try to maybe take a picture in the future of me stitching on it. We might do a stitch and chat in the future with this one, but I do have my Pokemon stitch and chat, which shows a little bit, and you also see me on the Painting Fairy sales on Facebook when they post the different photos of different cross stitchers using the frame. One of those is me, so you can see the setup that I have done with it. So I will put all my codes and everything below. Check them out, check out the frames. and see what you think. And if you're worried about shipping, they do cover a lot of the cost of the shipping, especially if you buy above a certain amount. So you actually, when you buy the bigger frames, you do get free shipping on them, at least here in the US. So it's not as bad as you might think. So here you go. I am showing this and my mocha dog there. I'm showing it on my stand. You can see it's a little bit small for the stand, but leaning slightly diagonally there, it does fit on it. But I decided to go ahead and go back and add the second bar to this one to make it just a little bit bigger so that I could fit it all the way across the stand. So I will show that here. So here we go with a slightly bigger cross stitch on both bars. Fits nicely. So thank you 121 Stitch for the opportunity to show another frame.